marketing and business negotiation strategies. And we have two guest speakers who are experts in their fields. At this point,
recording in progress.
Our first speaker is Mrs. Angela Makris, an international social researcher at the University of South Florida. One of her social marketing distinctions that involves Greece is a citizen co-creation program designed to enforce the law that bans smoking in enclosed public spaces called Trikala Quits Smoking. Additionally, she is the co-founder of the non-profit social marketing and behavioral change Institute of Greece. Our second speaker is Mr. Dimitris Giannakoudis, who holds a master's certificate in negotiation and conflict management from Athens University of Economics and Business. He is also the coordinator of Xanthi American Space, Xanthi Tech Lab, a multi-space of technology and networking of young people. Moreover, he successfully organized first Lego League Xanthi and Thrace Negotiations Tournament. At this point, I would like to say that it's really an honor to have both of you here with us. And now I would like to inform our audience that this event is divided in two parts. The first one is about social marketing. Mrs. Makris will give her speech about the topic, and after that, we will have a small Q&A session. Then we will take a 5-minute break. The second part is about negotiation. Mr. Giannakoudis will give his speech as well, and as a follow-up, he will have again a small talk session, but this time about business negotiation strategies. If you have any questions, you can write them at the chat of the live stream, and they will be answered after the presentations. Moreover, you can scan the QR code that appears to your screen and see for yourselves the analytic program of the event. Additionally, by scanning it, you can find more info about our guests and the feedback session. Mrs. Angela, I think that we can start right now, so you can share your screen, and I will tell you when it's okay for us to cooperation.
My screen now. Is it clear?
Yeah, I think that we can start.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that it is clear. Now, thank you everyone for this opportunity and Mindspace Xanthi, and thank you for doing it in English. Even though I am Greek, my English is far more proficient in this area. And today I'm going to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about social marketing. As Eleni said, we have actually done a case study about Trikala, which I'll talk to a little bit about. And it is an interesting way to appeal not just for behavior change in public health, but in many other areas that it can be applied to, because it is a framework that will help you understand who you want to appeal to and why. So let's get started. Today, we're going to be defining what social marketing is, understanding how it works, and also the 4 main core principles of social marketing and how it applies to business. There's a lot we'll get through, but I'm hoping it will give you a basic understanding so you can move forward if you choose to. So who am I? I'm a woman, as Eleni said, who has done many things. I've lived in Greece. I've also started a business in Greece. I've also finished a business in Greece. I've changed careers many times. I've also gone through the issues of getting a business started in Greece and ending a business in Greece. So I have an understanding of the complexities a system holds. I also have a background in marketing, which I have used in both in Australia and Greece, because my parents migrated to Australia in the 60s. And I now am doing a PhD on different theories and cultural practices in the disability sector. And so I'm using all my talent to now go focus on research. And I've also started a non-profit with a Greek business partner who also is a social marketer. So what is social marketing? In the past few years, it has been confused a lot with social media. because it is not social media, it is not an ad, and it's not using social causes to sell a product. Basically, social media is used way down the bottom of the list here. It is after you've done all your strategizing, you use social media as a tactic. It is not a strategy. And if you have a look at these steps, these are classic marketing steps, and they will also show you what you need to do for classic marketing, but also how social marketing is different. And please take a note of what the actual steps are here, where it's identifying opportunities and corporate objectives. And this is what classical marketing is. And I'd like to also keep in mind again, social media is a tactic. It comes way after everything else. So what is social marketing? It's a behavior change approach that does base itself on traditional marketing to promote sustainable change and positive social outcomes. It is human-centered, research guided, using marketing techniques for social good. So the definition of that is that social marketing seeks to develop and integrate marketing concepts with other approaches to influence behaviors that benefit individuals and communities for the greater social good. Now, the greater social good is something that is very important and not very focused on in Greece at the moment, but it can differentiate you from the competition. Now, the difference between social marketing and commercial marketing I have uploaded here, and social marketing meets the needs of the population. It doesn't create a need for the population. It is society and consumer profit, not the market. It is not profit driven for the company, it's profit driven for the people in the community. Organizations with similar goals work with each other, where businesses work with similar goals and compete with each other. The campaigns in social marketing do take longer because it is a behavior change, whereas in a commercial marketing environment, it's a shorter selling time, shorter lead time to sell a product. And in the social marketing world, consumer involvement and commitment is needed, and the short-term commitment and involvement of someone is needed basically to get them to buy something and then move on. With social marketing, we don't want them to move on, we want them to stay. So basically, how that works and why it's unique is because by using the basis of commercial marketing, we build on it where we work with who we want to work with, which behaviors we want to influence, how to go about it, and how to measure it. And again, I focus on the behaviors and the people because this is the two differentiating points of social marketing. So it is all about the consumer. It is about the person you want to actually approach in whether you're creating a service or a product, or you're trying to change someone's behavior towards a certain type of lifestyle. So what we're trying to do in social marketing is understand the person's behavior, the community's behavior, the consumer, the clients, the patients, the professionals, the politicians, because you can also use this as an advocacy tool. So we're trying to find what people have a fixed mindset, which means they'll never change what they do or say, and those that have a growth mindset that are open to change. And by doing your research on who is open to change and who isn't, you can actually target your initiatives to those that are going to give you the most results. And we'll talk about how you can measure those later. So basically, consumer orientation is the bottom bit where we generate insight from our audience. We understand the customer, and in this case, I'm using the example of getting them vaccinated, whereas the other way around is I'm an expert, I'm telling you what to do, and that's it. They don't actually take into account your behavior or your situation. They just say, do this, and then leave it up to you to decide or not. And it's usually broad in its base. So core principle is about targeting behavior. Do we want them to accept a new behavior, reject a current behavior that is not good for them, modify a behavior, or abandon a behavior? This is very important because people don't think down to this level. And this is important when you're either trying to get a service or a product out for people to use. What part of their behavior are you trying to target? And how you go about that is, do you do one-time behavior or do you want to establish a habit? And I'm using COVID examples because they're our most obvious at this point in time. One-time behavior is they get the vaccine and that's it. An established behavior is they keep washing their hands so they don't get any germs or any illnesses. So one-off or repeat. And this is something that is part of what you need to think about when you want to change a behavior. So the other thing is targeting the behavior. You know, educating people to do something isn't going to get them to isn't going to get them to change. Telling them to change is not going to get them to change. So you have to be very strategic about the behavior you want to target. And I'll be providing examples a bit further on because I know it's quite theoretical. So the other thing to remember is once you've got your behavior, you need to see who in your population you want to target. You can't, one size does not fit all, because you only have a limited amount of resources, and one of them is time and the other one is money. And so how do you end up segmenting your market? You can do it through demographics, through behavior, through psychographics, through the benefits sought. And here is a list of those. So geographically, is it in a certain town like Trikala was? It is in a certain region? Is it in a certain city area? Is it in a country? Is it through age, gender, where they work? Because you can also apply social marketing to workplace change as well. Is it with people who have certain attitudes such as stigma around mental health? Because you can also apply social marketing on a community level. So it all depends on how you want to segment and the reasons why. So another core principle of social marketing is exchange. For someone to go do what you want them to do, what do they want to give up? Is it their time? Is it their money? Is it their attitude to a situation? For you to accept a behavior, you have to let another one go. And you have to make that exchange more attractive than keeping the desired behavior. And this is crucial to anything you do. If you take nothing out of this lecture apart from what exchange is, then you are way ahead of your competition. Because by understanding what someone has to give up, you also understand how you can get them to change. So we also have an approach to do this, which is two. The first stage is doing your desk research. I'll explain that is. And then the other thing is actually formative research. Desk research is basically what exists, what literature, what reports, what surveys, what's in the news, what do people want, what motivates them, just in general from your observations from what exists out there. And then when you finally find that, okay, you have a basic understanding, but you want to learn more, you then basically go to the formative research where you focus on the people you want to target and talk to them and let them tell you why their problems or their issues and their wants and needs. And through all that, you will get your marketing plan figured out. Trust me on this. I have come up with great ideas that in my head worked, but in practice wouldn't have stood a chance if I didn't do my research. So it's important to focus on the person and not your ideas, because they're very rarely right for the people you intend to talk to. So I will go briefly over the 4 Ps. Most people know them, but in social marketing, they have a different meaning. With product is who benefits from what I'm going to give them. Price is the exchange. What do I need to provide them for them to actually go and do my behavior? Place is where the product is offered. If it's something like physical activity, does someone have a park nearby? It could be that simple. Promotion is who do I use? What channels of communication do I use? And which is what most people see when they look at marketing, but it all comes from a strategy, and the promotion is the end section. That's why it's always the 4th P and never the 1st. So now we get to the issue. We get, how do we apply this to a business? So basically we need to be strategic, and I'm talking about basically commercial, is there's 3 ways you can affect behavior. You can show someone what to do, you can help them do it, or you can make them do it. We're not going to be bothered with the make them do it, because that's where the laws come into play. But it is important when we come to Trikala, because there was a whole cultural shift that had to happen on many levels. But these are the 3 options you have to affect behavior in a business sense. Now, you also have to understand who your primary audience is, who you really want to talk to, which you've understood before, who the influencers are, and who has to gain or lose by the behavior you want to initiate. One way of looking at an individual, because you're looking at, I want to talk to the individual, but the individual influenced by all these things that happen around them. When you want to make a decision, you rarely make it on your own. You think you do, but you're impacted by the area you live in, the family you have, what school you went to, what work you do, the council you live in, the country you live in. You know, the ideas I might have might work in Australia, but will not work in Greece, because the public policy in the community is very different. So again, you understand that the individual is influenced by all these other elements when they make a decision. And these are the elements you want to understand when you're talking to them. So when you divide them into segments, you also need to see how similar they are and how different they are. And there's three different ways of segmenting. There's the undifferentiated one size fits all, such as one size of shoes. Differentiated, I'm using Coke as an example. In America, they have a taste for everyone. They have a lemon, they have strawberry, they have cherry, they have plain, they have diet, to appeal to people who want to drink Coke, but are differentiated. Then there's the concentrated, where you select very, very particular segments and develop a strategy very much for these people. And this is good for organizations that have limited resources, and one of them is budget. And I'm using a super yacht because no one's going to ever communicate to me about a super yacht because I'm not part of that core audience. So another reason is that you always, it's about resource allocation. Segmenting is about how to use your resources and also how to measure them. And without this segmentation, you will never get the feedback you want, nor understand if your concepts are working, because you've just not really looked at who you're talking to. So, and this is just another way of doing it, as we've described before. You have to find this segment, evaluate those segments, and choose one or more segments as you keep going and growing in your business and in your intent. So we get back to how we applied social marketing to the quit smoking Trikala. For those who have not, do not know it, Trikala knew that every Christmas, Trikala puts on a wonderful Christmas show. And in 2016, they realized they wanted to stop people from smoking indoors to protect the families that came. Over 1 million people come to Trikala over that time period, 2 weeks in December. So they thought they would create a new social norm, which means, if those people don't know about it, creating a social norm is about changing the way people think and see each other in the community. Because a lot of people copy and mimic. If he's smoking, I'll smoke. If he's not smoking, then I won't smoke, to put it mildly. So basically they realized the biggest hindrance to doing that are the cafes and the restaurants and the bars who thought they would lose business. So what happens if we looked at the decision-making process again from this model is that the law is here, uniquely positioned, and no one was actually enforcing it. The community had a role to play in helping that happen, especially the police and the doctors and the sports organizations and the schools, to make this normal. The biggest problem here is the organizational, where the cafe shop owners wanted to feel that they weren't going to be losing business and that everyone had to do it, or else they would go next door. For the person to actually change their habits, the majority wanted to, but didn't see any reason, because no one was changing their habits. So why should I change mine? Which is where the friendship network comes into it. So as something might look very simple, is actually quite complex in practice. So what happened, and they were on a very tight budget because no council in Greece has a lot of money, or very few. And what they tried to do is see, because they tried to understand where the problem lies, they got every single element of this model as part of a co-creation working group. So they got the police, they got the people on the council, they got coffee shop owners, they got people from the community, all to sit together in the one room and work out how to solve this issue. Because if the cafe shop owners kept people smoking indoors and the police weren't issuing fines, then no one would change their perception. What also happened is that coffee shop owners had to find ways to talk to the people going for the coffee or the restaurant and tell them that, you know, the old way has changed and we are now going on the new way. So they had to involve ways of communicating to the customers that wouldn't upset them, and also train the staff of these coffee shops and restaurants how to talk to a customer that was maybe pushing back and saying, well, I can do what I want. Until yesterday, I could smoke. So there's all these things you need to take into account when you try and implement a behavior change pattern. So this is an example. This poster was taken in the World Social Marketing Conference, and Leonida and I got an award for it because it was strategic and impactful, which is important. And because there was very little money, and I know I'm over time, so I'll be very quick, they picked one thing that appealed to both the store owners, the community, is είναι θέμα πολιτισμού. So basically something that appealed to people's patriotism. And this was the theme across all the three different elements. So basically, how do you do social marketing on a budget? You do a return on investment. You look at what's going to give you the most impact. And you do that by doing your research, seeing where the barriers are and where the opportunities are. And if the barriers are too high, go somewhere else. The market is big enough for you to start and go to another behavior and another target group. And here is how you do that. You basically look at the strengths of your competition, you look at your weaknesses, you look at how many different populations there are, and you move forward. And this is an example which I won't go through, but you look at what's feasible and what's impactful. And this is about getting people to be more active. And physical activity was deemed to be the one that could be easily done and have the most impact for what the budget was. This is a framework about social marketing that can be used in any area. And this is the area that you do your research. This is another area which is simplified: your target, your priority, do your research, develop the plan, and implement, test and plan. And you'll see that there's always feedback and community involvement. So if you do nothing else today and find all this a bit too hard for now, these 4 points are going to help you get to where you want to be. Do I really understand my target audience and see things from their perspective? Am I clear about what I would like my target audience to do? For my target audience, do the benefits of doing what I would like them to do outweigh the costs or barriers to doing it, the exchange? Am I using a combination of activities in order to encourage people to achieve the desired action? And basically, they're the things that you always need to keep in mind, because the person and the behavior, it should be your focus, not selling something, but letting that, whatever you want to do, a service or a tool, be something that will be of use to the person. And these are some resources that I will also send to Eleni to provide if anyone is interested. And there are some books that I think will help you make a better leader, a better social marketer, and help people change their mindset. And if you want to talk to myself in Greek or English, or Leonida in Greek or English, these are our details. And I'll be happy to share any questions or answer any questions that you may have. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for this enlightening and informative presentation about social marketing, Mrs. Makris. I think that now we can start the Q&A session. So we have some questions that we would like to make. These are especially from students. So we've noticed that many students think that social marketing is the sort for social media marketing. So what I'm really questioning is, are the same? And if not, what are their differences?
That happens everywhere. It's not just Greece anymore, it's everywhere. The differences, as I said, is that social media marketing is a tactic. Social media marketing is never used by itself. It's part of a bigger plan. So if we were to look at anything, and if you want to change behavior, and I'll just use COVID as the classic example, because everyone's been bombarded with social media and tactics and online tactics and radio, television, you name it. For that to happen, there's been a segmentation process, because social media is very niche marketed. So how you would talk to someone on Facebook and on Snapchat and on WhatsApp and on Viber is very different to how you would talk to someone on television, on print media, or basically on radio, because all those mediums are quite popular in Greece. Different age groups, different messages, and different communication. Social media marketing is a tactic that has come after you've done your behavioral research, your audience research, and understand the exchange. Social marketing is about the social. It's about the person rather than the product. Social media is about how to communicate and reach that person. And that is the difference. It's a tactic and not a plan. It is part of a bigger plan. It's a sub-plan that involves digital communication.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can understand that social marketing it seeks for something bigger. So we see that social marketing is commonly used for causes like health and safety or social activism. But can we use it for a campaign of a startup or a business maybe?
I think you can, because it is, as I said, it's a framework. So you've got a startup and you want to promote, I don't know, whatever it is. You have to look at the behavior, everything you are promoting, it will be changing a behavior. Will it be to download an app to use it more? Will it be to get this to use this technology? For someone to use what you're wanting to create, you have to understand what behavior you need to change in the end consumer and what cost it has. Is it I'll use an app as a prime example. Is it an app that's going to cost someone money? Is it a free download with benefits built into it? Do you want them to keep using the app? What measures do you need to take for them to do that? Is it a one-off download that you just, don't care if they do it or not because your revenue stream comes from something else? And it's about the behavior you want to change, not that, that you think your app is going to change the world, because it won't. It will not. It'll get caught in the noise that happens to be what everyone else is doing. So the better you understand who you're talking to and why you're creating something, the better it'll be. It has also been used a lot in engineering, which is an odd place to do it, because engineering is talking about changing structures. And it has been used with great success in countries like Africa that actually just get people to use wells where they have water pumping. And most people didn't know how to use the pump or what would happen if it broke down, or basically what to do afterwards. So the engineers went and put the pumps in, social marketers went in and showed them how to use this new system that is now part of their everyday. So they took something that was very foreign and made it a social norm. So you need to look, and that's a good example about creating a structure and how do people use this new world. And this is something that you can marry. It doesn't have to be by itself. You can marry it with another industry to work together. And that's a lot with science. And we've seen it perfectly with the COVID and the research and people communicating the wrong way about changing behavior and the right way about changing behavior is because they didn't have the time to do their research. And that's because of the situation. But you can marry two different fields, social marketing being the framework and a field that doesn't normally associate with it, because what you're doing is creating an understanding of the system through understanding the behavior that person will be using in the system.
Okay, so if we do our research and we really make a good job, but we're not so sure about it, we want to do something bigger, so we try a social marketing campaign. But how can we know that it really could be a success? Because we are not going to rely on the behavior of people. It's not something that is specific or we know how it's going to happen.
Well, see, this is where the strategy comes in. It can be very specific. It also takes a little bit longer because it's not as obvious on the bottom line. And because of time, I haven't been able to get into the specifics, but you can actually, by interviewing people in the community you want to use your product, you understand how quickly they will change and who to target first. Those that are more ready to change is who you talk to first. So you see results and then you spread it from there. And to do that, you need to do your research of who is the more open-minded person and who is the least obvious to do it. So you go to those that will have the behavior change more likely to happen. And then you promote that. Like, look what people here are doing and be part of this group of people. So you pick, and that's why research is so important. Don't just hope for the best, plan for the best. And this is what most people don't do. And by picking those that have the most likeliness to change, you will get the results that you can then promote.
Okay, so here in Greece, we are not so familiar with the term social marketing, but this kind of marketing is a new way that we could try to use for the development of our local community, for example. If we want to make a campaign, let's say, about keeping our city clean, but we don't have the knowledge or the experience to organize such a project, even if we search or if we make our research, is there any organization that we could reach and ask for their help?
That's what you should be doing regardless of what it is. You have the council cleanup, which I know is a major thing in Greece. what you do is you look at the nonprofits in your area, you look at the community involvement. You also go to the council, which probably won't help you very much, and try and find out people who are doing similar things to you. You can start with a simple Facebook group in your area and target it and say, who will help me clean up Trikala? I'll just use that as an example, and see how many people sign up. And then, I mean, social media is an outreach that we never had before. So you can pick very targeted areas and talk to those people in your region and see who's interested. And there's bound to be people who know people, which is why the co-creation by your community will yield results, because you will find people that you wouldn't been able to find before in a linear fashion. So I would recommend something like creating a Facebook outreach, which is pretty inexpensive to do. And even, you know, your networks, WhatsApp have networks. Everyone has networks now on social media, far more than I probably know. And these are the ways you can reach them, very targeted and very specific. And you also look for people that are doing the same thing in other communities. This might, you know, other people in Greece, I'm doing it, I'm sure. There's also the people keep the beaches clean. There's also that. I know when I was in Yanina, they had pagoristes, sanatenistes, and so on and so forth, that very much focused on a community involvement. And there's also a lot of nonprofits. The Rotary Group, I know it's old school, but they also do work and might point you in the right direction. So it's use social. This is where social media will be your friend, very much so.
Okay, so we can understand that it is affordable even for student brands, for example, to make a social campaign and do something for our community development. So I have only one last question. Is it possible that knowledge of social marketing could be applied also in other scientific fields? And if so, how is this possible?
Well, it depends on the scientific fields. If, as I said, you can tie it in with engineering, which is very linear and very structured. You can tie it in with health and behavior change, which is how it normally is. You can tie it in with stigma and the changing community, which is impacting many levels, from the way services are rendered to how doctors treat people that are more vulnerable. You can apply it to economics. Economics has had the nudge and behavior change, but they're focusing very much on one thing, not a framework. And this is important because social marketing is a framework where you can apply behavior change economics. You can apply other elements.
Make a team for an experiment or a campaign, we will need people from different kind of fields, scientific fields, to make it more accurate and
more sustainable. The more buy-in you have, the less likely someone can say no.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I think that we are done here. Thank you again for all your time and collaboration. And now we will take a 5-minute break and we will back with Mr. Giannakoudis speaks. Okay, we are officially back and we are ready for the speech of Mr. Giannakoudis. So you can start now.
Great. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here with you all. I would like to start, first of all, to see the contents in short. I will say a couple of things about negotiation, a short intro in order to have an opinion. After that, business negotiation and a few strategies, hopefully shortly. I don't want to. Okay, now about negotiations generally. A negotiation is a strategic discussion that resolves an issue in a way that both parties find acceptable. In a negotiation, each party tries to persuade the other to agree with his or her point of view. If there's a conflict, definitely there's a negotiation. I have here three key takeaways, which is very important about negotiations. Can take place between buyers, sellers, an employer and prospective employee, or governments, or two or more countries. Negotiating is used to reduce debts, lower the sale price of house, improve the conditions of a contract, or get better deal on a car. When negotiating, be sure to justify your position. Put yourself in the other party's shoes, keep your emotions in check, and know when to walk away. This is very important in my opinion. Now, we have here 7 very important key factors in negotiations. I believe not only negotiations, but in business negotiations too. We will see that in the following in the presentation. We have communication, relationship, alternatives, realistic options, interests, level of commitment, and legitimacy. Now, concerning relationship, this is the question, am I prepared to deal with a relationship? It means a good negotiating relationship is needed to address differences and conflicts. It's very important to separate people issues from substantive issues. Plan and prepare to build and maintain a good working relationship. About communication, am I ready to listen and talk effectively? Especially in Greece, I have to tell you that we can't communicate effectively. Here we have to create a learning conversation, active listening, listen to understand, speak to be understood, speak about yourself, not them, and of course, speak for a purpose. Now, about interests. What do people really want? When we are going to bargain, to negotiate something, we have to know both parties' interests. What our opponent or the other player want. Collectively, identify and articulate the interests, concerns, and needs of all relevant parties. Mine, yours, theirs. If there is a negotiation in parallel, simultaneously. Remember, most parties do not know all their interests or necessarily agree on their interests. Identify and prioritize community interests together. Get on the same page. Probe for your and their unarticulated or underlying interests. About realistic options. What are the possible agreements or bits of an agreement? Design options, not positions. Very important in negotiations. Create options to meet interests of both parties. And remember as well, when designing options, they also must transparently meet their interests. Find ways to maximize joint gains for both. How about alternatives? What we'll do if we do not agree? If there is no win, if we usually the most relevant is to have a win-win situation. What if our negotiation don't work? Now, do we need to negotiate, or can we satisfactorily meet our interests in other ways? Identify and articulate our best alternatives to a negotiated agreement. Here, something common and very good option in negotiation is BATNA, B-A-T-N-A. means best alternative to a negotiated agreement. I have to understand the implementation consequences, risks, and costs of mine and their partner. After that, we have legitimacy. What criteria will I use to persuade each of us that we are not being ripped off? Fairness is a governing consideration. Use external criteria and objective standards as a basis to legitimize your preferred options and as a shield against unreasonable proposals from the other side. And regarding commitment and the level of commitment, what commitments should I seek or make? Get commitment at the end, not at the beginning. An important issue as well. Identify all of the implementation issues to be included in the agreement and plan the time frame and steps to implement the agreement. Kevin O'Leary said that so much of life is a negotiation. So even in your not business, you have opportunities to practice all around you. Let's proceed to business negotiation. At its most basic, business negotiations are negotiation between corporate entities, their vendors, or their employees. But there is a lot beyond that. Two key points here. Negotiating in business, it's absolutely critical to your success. Poor negotiation can cripple a company just as quickly as losing key customers. And we'll see a few examples later. Be prepared. Negotiation rules and tactics can be applied in business as well. I will say a few things about business negotiation as well. And most of our business negotiation was try to drive a hard bargain, giving away not a cent more than is necessary, even as we strive to ensure that our counterpart is satisfied with their own outcome. However, figuring out who should get what is really easy, but creative solutions to problems in negotiation do exist. For example, it's not uncommon in business negotiation to find yourself on the brink of an impasse. You and your counterpart have exchanged a series of offers and counteroffers, and you've met somewhere close to the middle, but not close enough. With each side firmly rooted in its position, there may seem to be no way forward. That's when it helps to know how to use MESO in negotiation. And what is MESO? MESOs, which stands for multiple, equivalent, simultaneous offers, may help you break through your deadlock and find common ground. Something very important. I would like here to proceed about three very important, in my opinion, business negotiation strategies: positional power, negotiation in parallel, and strength distributions. Now, positional power. Positional power occurs in every negotiation. It's fluid and thus it's ever changing at the negotiation processes. By understanding the dynamics of a negotiation and being aware of when you have positional power, you can enhance your efforts to obtain the result you seek from the negotiation. But what is exactly a positional power? And I will use a very good example from a movie I personally like. Now, when you possess information, a tangible item or something that's of perceived value by the other negotiator, you have positional power. The degree of value you hold at the moment is dependent on the value the other negotiator applies possessing what you have. How you can use positional power to your advantage when negotiating. This is why I write here, recognize. When you recognize that you have positional power, you can suggest or demand, depending on the situation that the proposal that you've put forth be met or concessions be made to oblige your position. Be cautious as to how you flaunt positional power because it shifts throughout the negotiation. And once you lose it, you may fall prey to its use by the other negotiator. How can you recognize when positional power occurs? And of course, use it as your advantage as well. Positional power can be glimpsed in a gesture received from a negotiator perceived as the result of superior position than one possessed at a given time in the negotiation. It will usually be displayed in the form of one negotiator feeling superior and making statements that match the demeanor. Here we have a very iconic scene from The Godfather Part 1. I use this opening scene from the movie because I would like to see how positional power works. Vito Corleone is the leader of a family, obviously. At the same time, he's, let's say, the manager of a business as well, of an organization. And here, a colleague, a partner, let's say, is going to ask for a favor. You can see how Vito uses the whole environment, the light, body language. He have also partners there. If you see the movie and if you could remember the scene, there are more than 5 partners there. This is power. This is strength. Shows that he's a leader. This is a business negotiation tactic and strategy from Vito because his organization, let's say that it was a business for him and his family. So that was a very good way to show his power and make an offer he can refuse. This is also a famous quote. This quote coming from positional power. Now, let's proceed to negotiating in parallel, meaning multiple negotiations. This is a big problem that we have. Personally, I learned how to negotiate at the same time, not with only one party, but with both parties, having my family, let's say, something to negotiate very effectively the last 2 years. I use here the orange example, which is 2 sisters are fighting over an orange. Their mother intervenes and discovers that one sister wants to have juice, while the other needs to peel to make a pie. The mother appropriately shares the 2 parts of the orange between the 2 sisters, and both are very happy. You have read this kind of story, of course, in many negotiation books. How about if the scenario is different? Okay, add this scenario, add another sister who wants to peel for cosmetic use, a grandmother who thinks that the orange is rotten and should be thrown away, a toddler who thinks that the orange is a ball and wants to play with it, and an elder brother who wants the orange simply so that nobody else can have it. Yes, this is a negotiation in parallel. We have multiple parties and it's very difficult. It's a multi-party negotiation. It's frequently difficult to identify who wants what and how to get what we want in such a dynamic situation. Let's try to understand what some of the biggest challenges are in multi-party negotiations. One of the reasons why we need to understand multi-party negotiations well is that they are a lot more frequent than we realize, not in business, but in our everyday life. What we do when we have a series of negotiations at the same time, in our work, in our family, in our businesses, what we do? First of all, setting priorities. It's the most important. What I'm going to bargain first for, is it important my family or my business? Partnerships. This is something that we could use as an advantage. Partnerships and alliances. It's very important when I'm not in a position power and I don't have generally the strength to the necessary strength for a negotiation. For example, with my boss asking for better salary. Understanding interests and work toward an agreement. Here we can use BATNA as well, best alternative to a negotiated agreement for 2-party negotiation or a multi-party negotiation. Concerning toward agreement, I have to say here that the multi-party negotiation rarely have all involved gather around a table or even involved in all the discussions, but rather take the form of a serious negotiation and interactions with different parties, each achieving a small step towards a bigger unified agreement. Here I want to say 10 steps. I want to mention 10 steps for managing multi-party negotiation. First of all, I have to know what I want for me and for the other party or parties. Multi-party negotiation check. Anticipate collisions and prepare for them. Precondition parties. Create an imperative to act. Determine how decisions will be made. Understand negotiables, interests, and, of course, priorities of parties. Determine best alternatives, the BATNAs. Breaking down, and the last one, propose, count, refine, and agree. Multi-party negotiations are surprisingly common in everyday life. While they are a world apart from negotiations between two parties, the basic principles or processes of negotiation still apply. They are riddled with complexities, due in no small part to prevalence of collisions that can facilitate or disseminate the entire process. Despite this, the greatest strength of multi-party negotiations is that they are powered by the fundamental interest of all parties to reach an agreement. It's necessary to have a win-win situation, but if the other party is not flexible, I have to reschedule to replan my strategy. Now, a quote that I also liked. I have learned that in all negotiations, nothing matters except the will to reach an agreement, by Harold Macmillan. Now, about strength distribution. Here, I'm referring to a symmetrical distribution of power. Negotiations play an important role in all businesses, deals in network markets. Asymmetrical distributions of power makes negotiations difficult and should be prevented. When power is distributed as an asymmetrical manner to this disadvantage, the actor or the other party will certainly ask himself if he even has a chance of negotiating in a good result. An actor negotiates because he wants to be better off. This is mostly about gaining access to so-called essential facilities in network markets. The actor is sure that he can improve his situation, otherwise he could not enter into negotiations. The power of strategy is the dynamic connection of all three power dimensions, where the limits are set by access information and time. The main focus so far has been explaining how power affects negotiations and on describing the development from perceived resulting to real power. Now, three ways for this strategy or for this situation: depreciation, activation, accumulation. Three key facts as well here. I have to identify these three ways in order to have a win-win situation. Field relations. For example, business trip vs family obligations. Something very common, conflict size. Small conflict, small client versus big conflict, important client. And conflict capacity. Which is my strength dispersion? Two conflicts at the same time, multiple negotiations. Now, about field relations. Let's say that there's a couple, James and Nikki, and they took a loan. 30% of James' salary goes to the installment of the loan. We're talking about monthly. Now, Nikki fired, and James tried unsuccessfully to hire her at his company. Unfortunately, due to the politic of the company, he can't hire his wife because it's a family. So James found a partner who hired her with the same salary she has at the previous company. Now, consider the domain of relations and the conflicts. About the conflict size. Did I estimate the conflict size correctly or not? This is a common mistake. How precise is it consider other simultaneous conflicts? How could be calculated the importance of each field? For example, Mary is about to lose an important client of his company because she refused to give him some benefits. At the same time, she gave a few benefits to other clients who finalized their orders. Here, there is a danger to lose $10,000 bonus for this big client. So at the same time, she has 2 or 3 conflicts in parallel. She needs the bonus to pay her son's MBA. I think it's for let's say for 2 years. It's a 2-year MBA. Extra conflicts, 2 of her best colleagues transfer to another department. Consequently, his department is about not to have the yearly productivity bonus about the schedule. No bonus for 2 years, and at the same time, many complaints from other colleagues because of her lack of interference to the manager. So you can see the domino here we have, and Mary have to face. Now, as I said before, as I mentioned before, the top here that we have to understand are our priorities: order cancellation, colleagues transfer, and colleagues problem. Fields importance. Here we have client relations, the 10,000 bonus, and future relation with this big and important client, because we want him for the future, for future transactions and future businesses. Colleagues, the manager, my family, and partners. These are our problems and our parallel negotiations where I have to distribute my powers, my strength. Strategies: offer benefits to the client and build a future relation. Here, it's necessary, Mary, to bring a balance between the big client and the other clients. The second one, Mary's ability to be flexible and ask for other colleagues capable and reliable for her department in order to have the 2-year bonus of productivity. And also company's flexibility to find solutions. The manager is, of course, responsible to solve this problem and to give solutions. In this occasion, we need problem solvers, not problem makers. And to sum up, to negotiate effectively in business, be prepared, set priorities, let your ego outside, make alliances to increase your power, and avoid unpleasant situations. That was all. Thank you very much for your patience. And if you have any questions, of course.
Thank you very much for this illuminating presentation and all the helpful tips about negotiation strategies, Mr. Giannakoudis. And I think that we can now start with the Q&A session. So we also have some questions for you. And let's see. In your opinion, why negotiation skills are very important, not only in the business world, but also in our everyday life?
That's a good question. Thank you. Generally, you can get what you want if you negotiate. If you can communicate with, let's say, with your boss, with your colleague, with your family. Generally, we negotiate every day in our life with our family, with our friends, brothers, generally everyone we can imagine. So it's very important to communicate and be good listeners.
Thank you very much. But if we do not participate in a webinar or we don't have a certificate about negotiations, how can someone learn how to negotiate?
A very good question as well. It is a process that we did every day. Maybe we don't know it. Every time there is a conflict, consequently, we have a negotiation. Every time we're going to ask for something, it is a negotiation. We're negotiating every day. many ways, I have to say. However, if you want to be a good negotiator, learn how to be a good listener, communicate, and leave your ego out of an agreement and negotiation.
So I suppose that ego plays a really specific role in the negotiation progress. But what happens if we are in this negotiation and we can't leave our ego aside because it's something that we really want? Then what can we do?
Then it's difficult to have a win-win situation. If you have two parties and the one party is not flexible, be prepared for a win-lose situation. Unfortunately, during important situations, it's necessary to be flexible, to be good negotiators, to ask questions, and be communicative generally. So if you have to leave your ego out, do it.
Okay. What is the greatest asset that we can have when we are going into a negotiation?
It's a rule generally. Before start a negotiation, be prepared, which means get any information you can gather about the other side, about the company you are going to negotiate. Ask questions, ask calibrated questions, questions about the policy, questions about budget, salaries, and be, of course, I insist, a good listener, an active listener.
Okay. I want to ask you something about the procedure. I mean, during negotiation, does the need to please ever play a role?
Okay. Usually, you negotiate over the position. And if you can avoid your emotions, it would be great. You can't, of course, please everyone, but if you use the BATNA I mentioned before, best alternative to a negotiating agreement, you will have most likely a win-win situation. So you can please both sides, but somewhere in the middle.
Okay. And another question about the procedure. If we want to understand the other side's strategies during our negotiation, how could we do that? And if we do that and understand what they are doing, how could we use it for our own benefit?
Great. A tactic that we could use is labeling. Labeling and mirroring at the same time. Mirroring is when you said something, when you're letting your proposal unfinished, and you're leaving the other side to say more things, to give you more information. It's very useful tip to gain information. The key here is to ask many questions. Making questions, you will get many informations, and of course the other side can be calm. If you can drive the other side not to be calm, it would be something very successful. He will lose its concentration and will tell you everything you need to know.
Okay, so that I will keep it in mind.
Of course.
And one last question. Do negotiation strategies also help us with managing conflicts and business crises? And if so, how? And if you can give us an example here, I think that it would be the best.
Okay, as I mentioned in my presentation, you can use your skills, your negotiation skills in business. I believe that research generally, I've read that we have daily from 1 to 70 conflicts. The majority of them, we don't understand that we have a conflict. It's something very strange. However, if we could understand it, there is a negotiation. Keep in mind that when there is a conflict, there is a crisis. When there is a crisis, there is a negotiation. So An example is that, what can we say? I will use an example from my work. There were a time that I had to run 5 projects in a month. However, for a weekend, I have 2 parallel projects. Consequently, I have to communicate with more than 30 people, meaning a lot of negotiations, conflicts, of course, because I don't have an ego when I'm going to negotiate and be professional, but I had to face all these sides. It was difficult. What I did, I set priorities. It's very important to set priorities. And here I have another example to say, and together with theory, I will show you, I have it here, a book, of course, Never Split the Difference. You know it.
Yeah.
Negotiating as if your life depended on it, by Chris Voss. Chris Voss is an ex-FBI negotiator. And what he did, he used his skills from FBI processes and negotiating and applied in real life and business. And now he is a successful negotiating coach and mentor. So we could use our real life skills in order to negotiate in our work and businesses.
Thank you very much. That were all of my questions. So I think that our meetup has come to an end. Once again, I would like to thank both of you for your collaboration, Mrs. Makris and Mr. Giannakoudis. And it was really our honor to have you here. I would like to thank Xanthi Tech Lab as well, because if it wasn't Xanthi Tech Lab, we wouldn't be able to organize all of this and turn it into reality. This event that connects Florida with Xanthi and business negotiation strategies with social marketing. I think that it's something new, and I would like to thank you very much. It is our honor to have you here. And hopefully someday we can do this in person. Thank you very much.